Welcome back to our deep dive. I want you to do me a favor right now.
Oh,
It's easy. Wherever you are right now, whether you're commuting, sitting at your desk, maybe winding down for the day, I want you to just mentally turn down the lights.
I like that. Setting the mood.
Exactly. Because we are shifting gears today. We aren't looking at the big, loud headlines. We are getting quiet. We're getting comfortable.
We really are stepping into a time machine for this one.
We are, to a very specific, very intimate moment in the past that somehow, almost impossibly, manages to speak directly to us right here, right now.
It's a pleasure to be here, by the way, and you are absolutely right about the atmosphere. This one feels completely different.
It does.
We aren't analyzing a booming lecture given to some crowded hall. We aren't breaking down a complex scientific paper, although, as we will see, the implications of what we're discussing definitely touch on the mechanics of how reality is constructed.
Oh, for sure.
But this is smaller. It's quieter. And honestly, in some ways, it's much louder because of that silence.
Right. We are zooming in on a very specific date. Sunday night, May 29th, 1966.
It is late.
Yeah, the guests have finally gone home, the house is quiet, and we are looking at session 263 of the early sessions, book 6 of the Seth Material.
It is such a fascinating glimpse behind the curtain. It's just so rare to get this kind of raw, unfiltered look at the process.
Now, before we unlock the door to that living room in 1966 and see what's actually happening, we do need to handle a bit of important housekeeping.
Right, the mission for today's deep dive.
Exactly. We have a specific mission here, and we want to make sure we are doing it right. First and foremost, we have to state clearly, and this is a mandatory declaration for us, that this deep dive is distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes.
We are definitely not selling this audio.
No, we are here to learn, to explore, and to share this incredible stuff with you.
Absolutely. And along with that, we have to give credit where it is strictly due.
Yes. The source material we're diving into today, the words, the context, the notes, it all comes directly from the Seth Material.
Which is published by the New Awareness Network.
Right. And if you find yourself captivated by what we discussed today, and I highly suspect you will because this session is just a goldmine, you absolutely need to go to the source.
We are really just the guides holding the flashlight here. The territory belongs to Jane Roberts, Robert Butts, and of course Seth.
We will give you the specific details on exactly where to find those books later on in the show, but for now, just keep that in mind. This is their story we're exploring.
So set the scene for us. Out of all the sessions, and I mean there are hundreds, eventually thousands, why does session 263 stand out to you? Why this specific Sunday night?
Honestly, it's the vibe. Just look at the timestamp. The notes tell us the date of record is May 29, 1966, and the time is approximately 11:25 p.m.
11:25 p.m. on a Sunday.
Right. Now, I don't know about you, but 11:25 p.m. on a Sunday night is a very specific mood.
Oh, it's a universal feeling. The weekend is officially over.
The work week is looming just a few hours away.
It is prime Sunday scaries time. The energy is usually super low, maybe a little melancholic or just plain tired.
Exactly. And usually at that hour, you are just winding down. You're emptying the ashtrays because let's remember, it's 1966. Everyone was smoking indoors. You're picking up the glasses, maybe finishing the last of the coffee.
Just doing the mundane cleanup.
And the note in the text says explicitly that this session was unscheduled and held after company had left.
That is such a crucial detail. I think that's the key to understanding the whole tone here.
Yeah.
This wasn't a performance.
Oh.
This wasn't a scheduled appointment with the universe. Jane Roberts and her husband, Robert Butts, who are referred to as Ruburt and Joseph by Seth, they had been entertaining guests all evening.
They had been on, socially speaking.
Right. And now the guests are gone. The house is finally quiet. It creates this incredible feeling of intimacy. You really feel like a fly on the wall in a way that the bigger, more structured sessions just don't convey.
It's the difference between watching a press conference and listening to a couple talk at their kitchen table. And what I love most is the sheer mix of topics that comes out of this silence.
It's wild.
Yeah. You would think that if an interdimensional entity appears just before midnight, they'd have some grand singular message, like, here's the meaning of life, good night.
Take this tablet and go forth.
Right, exactly. But instead, we get this chaotic, beautiful, very human mix. We get financial advice.
Meta commentary on the book publishing industry.
Yes. And we get these weird, cryptic riddles about the state of Tennessee. It's totally all over the place.
It really runs the gamut, and I think that is exactly the point. It grounds the supernatural in the utterly mundane.
Paradoxically, that makes the supernatural elements feel even more real.
Right, because if it was all thunder lightning, it would feel staged. But this feels like an actual conversation.
So our mission today is to decode that mix. We want to understand what Seth was trying to tell them in those quiet moments, and why, 60 years later, some of those riddles still send a chill down the spine.
Let's start with the atmosphere in the room. We mentioned the time, 11:25 p.m. But look at the description of Jane Roberts herself right as this begins.
The notes say Jane first came through as Seth while sitting at ease on the couch.
Sitting at ease. That phrase does a lot of heavy lifting.
It really does. It paints such a clear picture. It's not Jane strapped into a chair. It's not Jane in some rigid trance state that looks painful or intense.
It's Jane, probably exhausted from hosting a party, just leaning back on the couch.
And the notes add a really fascinating detail about her eyes. It says they were closed part of the time.
But also open about half the time.
Exactly. It describes a level of dissociation that is incredibly fluid.
Yeah.
She is there, but she's not there.
It highlights the mechanism of the channel in these early days. We often have this Hollywood idea of channeling, right?
Yeah.
Where the medium starts shaking, the lights flicker, a demon voice comes out.
The table levitates, the whole deal.
Right. But this sounds so much more domestic.
Domestic is the perfect word for it. It's the contrast that gets me. 5 minutes ago, they were probably talking about the weather or local Elmira politics or how the dip tasted with their friends.
And now, suddenly, the personality has shifted, and they were discussing the nature of reality and future publishing contracts.
There is a real humor in that transition. The cleanup of the party isn't even fully done, and suddenly, boom, Seth is there.
And what actually kicks it off, it isn't Seth bursting in unannounced because he has some urgent, earth-shattering message. It's actually triggered by a conversation Rob and Jane were having themselves.
Right. They were wondering aloud. It is the big question every writer, every artist, every creator has asked themselves in the quiet of the night.
Will this ever be published?
Specifically, they were wondering if the bulk of the material would be published verbatim.
Which is a huge ask. I mean, let's look at the context. We're talking about thousands of pages of dictated notes.
Yeah.
For them, sitting there in 1966, that must have seemed like a total pipe dream.
Seriously, who is going to publish volume after volume of a transpersonality speaking on physics, consciousness, and the soul without editing it down?
It would have seemed impossible. And yet, Seth's answer is immediate and definitive.
He says quite definitely that the material would be published verbatim. He qualifies it slightly, saying not literally all of it, but, quote, certain large areas of it.
And here is where we really have to pause and look at the meta moment happening. Because frankly, it is chilling in the best possible way.
It actually gives me goosebumps. We are sitting here in the future relative to them recording a deep dive analysis on a podcast, well, an audio show about the very material they were afraid would never see the light of day.
The prophecy literally fulfilled itself. You, the listener, tuning in right now, you are the proof of Seth's statement.
It's like a time loop. Seth in 1966 is telling them, don't worry, people will read this exactly as I'm saying it. And here we are, analyzing it exactly as he said it.
It goes way beyond just a prediction, though. It's a deep assurance. He even steps into the role of a literary agent here. He reassures Jane about her other projects.
Yes. He mentions Jane's Seth book, which was at the publisher at the time. This would likely be How to Develop Your ESP Power, or maybe the early manuscript for the Seth Material book itself, and her dream book, which she had just sent off to another publisher.
He tells them both will be released. He is actively managing their anxiety. You have to remember, Jane Roberts wasn't just a channel. She was a writer.
She identified as a writer, first and foremost.
Exactly. The success of her work was deeply tied to her identity and her livelihood.
It's such a human moment. Here's this vast consciousness capable of explaining the multidimensional nature of the soul, taking a beat to just say, hey, don't worry, the manuscript is going to sell. You guys are going to be okay.
It shows a genuine level of care. It's not just data transmission, it's a relationship. I think it really challenges the skeptics who think this is just some cold, subconscious dump of information. There's real empathy here.
Speaking of relationships and the actual mechanics of how this works, there is a very interesting, slightly technical note Seth drops in this session about the bridge personality. Ah, yes. This is a callback to earlier sessions, specifically sessions 141 through 143. It's a bit of inside baseball for the Seth scholar, but it's crucial. Seth mentions that the bridge personality would eventually be dispensed with because it will no longer be needed.
Let's unpack that for you guys listening who might not be deep into the technical side of mediumship. What exactly is a bridge personality?
So, in the context of mediumship or channeling, especially in the early stages, it's believed that the connection between the host, in this case, Jane, and the entity Seth, can be really jarring. It's like a frequency mismatch.
Like trying to plug a high-voltage appliance into a standard outlet.
That's a great way to put it. You need a transformer, you need an adapter. The bridge personality is a psychological construct, subconscious or otherwise, that smooths that transition. It acts as a buffer zone so Jane isn't completely overwhelmed.
So Seth is saying here that they are graduating. Effectively, yes. He's implying that the channel is becoming pure. Jane is getting better at this. Her neurological or psychological pathways are adapting to the point where the training wheel, so to speak, can be taken off.
That implies an evolution. The Seth we hear in 1966 is still in a process of refining the connection with Jane. It's dynamic. It's not a static phenomenon.
It is dynamic.
Yeah.
And it leads us to wonder what happens when the bridge is completely gone. Does the voice change? Does the intensity increase? Seth suggests it simply becomes seamless. It's less work for Jane.
Okay, so we have the publishing prophecy, we have the technical update on the bridge personality, and then we pivot to something that honestly made me laugh out loud when I read it.
The financial forecast.
It is so specific.
Yeah.
And just so dryly funny. Seth looks at them. Well, Jane has her eyes closed, but metaphorically looks at them and says, quote, "You will do very well financially in the next few years."
A very welcome message for any struggling artist couple living in Elmira.
Absolutely. But then he zeroes in on Rob. He calls him Joseph, which is Rob's entity name in the Seth Material. And he says, "So well, in fact, that you, Joseph, will feel yourself compelled to sell your paintings in order to hold your own."
And then the absolute kicker, an absurd compulsion, I might add.
An absurd compulsion. And the notes say, Seth delivered this with a smile, eyes closed.
There is so much packed into that little joke.
It's a roast. He is totally roasting Roe.
He really is. He's poking fun at the traditional masculine role of the 1960s. Rob is the husband. He's supposed to be the provider. But suddenly his wife is channeling what will become a best-selling book series. The breadwinning dynamic is about to completely flip.
Seth is predicting that the books are going to make money. Real money. And he knows Rob's psychology so incredibly well. He knows Rob is going to panic and think, I need to contribute. I need to sell my art to match this income.
And Seth just flat out calls it absurd.
Because it is. It's not a competition. But Seth sees that human insecurity, that need to hold one's own, and he just gently mocks it.
It's very affectionate mocking, though. It actually validates Rob's art, implying his paintings can be sold, but questions the motive for selling them. If you're selling your art just to prove you earn as much as your wife, that's the wrong reason.
It really humanizes the entity. It shows he understands the social dynamics of a marriage in 1966 better than they do themselves.
But then, just as we are laughing about Rob's masculine pride and the painting sales, the tone shifts.
It shifts hard. We go from "you're going to be rich" to "here is a riddle that might keep you up at night."
This is the section that really earns the chilling descriptor we used in the intro. It stops being funny and starts being genuinely strange.
Seth says, simply note this, 5 and 7 and Tennessee.
5 and 7 in Tennessee.
And he clarifies immediately, the 5 and 7, the numbers of letters in a name.
Okay, so we are looking for a name. First name 5 letters, last name 7, or vice versa. And it's connected to Tennessee.
But he doesn't stop there. He adds now and S and a G.
S and G, initials.
It definitely sounds like initials. SG or GS connected to a 5-letter and 7-letter name in Tennessee.
And then the warning. Or maybe it's a promise. He says, there will be physical signs for dear Ruburt when the time comes for physical signs.
That phrase, when the time comes, it always sounds a little ominous to me.
It implies a schedule. It implies that events are already in motion. The train has left the station, even if they can't see it yet.
And physical signs, what does that even mean in this context? Manifestations, apports falling from the ceiling, or physical symptoms in the body.
Well, given Jane's later health struggles with rheumatoid arthritis, one might read it medically. But in the context of the riddles, the Tennessee clue, the initials, it sounds much more like external validation, like the universe is going to leave breadcrumbs for them.
It's the specificity that is so maddening. Why Tennessee? They are in Elmira, New York. They aren't in the South.
We don't know. The session doesn't resolve it. And that is part of the beauty and the absolute frustration of the early sessions. You're seeing the raw data. We don't get the neat little conclusion where Rob says, oh, that was Sally Garrett from Nashville.
Yeah.
We're just left with the puzzle pieces.
It's an open loop. And then, just to make sure our brains are completely twisted into pretzels, Seth drops another one immediately after.
A 4 and a 6 with a block between The block having to do with a period of time.
A 4 and a 6, with a block between.
I want you to just pause and think about that. Just visualize it. A 4, a block. A 6, what comes to mind?
My first thought is dates, like 1946, 1964.
But ages. Something happens between age 4 and 6,
Yeah.
or 40 and 60.
The clue is the block having to do with a period of time. Could it be a literal block, like a city block, a 4th Street and a 6th Street with a block of time between them?
That's a really fascinating interpretation. A spatial metaphor for a temporal problem. Like you have to walk a block, but the walk somehow takes years.
It feels like a code, like Seth is giving them a password that they'll need to recognize later.
That is often exactly how these precognitive clues work. They make absolutely no sense in the moment. They're designed to be nonsense until the event occurs. Then, looking back, the click of recognition is undeniable. It serves as proof that the entity exists outside of linear time.
Right, so if he said, you will meet a man in a red hat, that could easily be coincidence. Red hats exist. But a 4 and a 6 with a block of time between having to do with Tennessee and S&G, if that specific combination happens, you know it's real.
Precisely. It's statistical impossibility used as a signature. It acts as an authentication key.
This moves us right into the nature of Seth's presence in their lives. Rob, feeling the weight of all this, the money, the publishing, the riddles, the future, he asks a very vulnerable question.
He asks, are we going to dream of you?
It's almost like a child asking a parent, will I see you tonight?
It really is. They are seeking comfort. They want to see Seth. They want that connection to continue into the sleep state. They want to visualize him.
And Seth's response is, I think, one of the most profound lines in this entire session, maybe in the entire book.
You may not dream of me, but I will be in your dreams, you see.
I will be in your dreams.
That distinction is so vital.
Break down the difference for us. Why does in matter more than of?
Well, if you dream of someone, they are an avatar in your dream. You see them walking, talking. They are a character in the play you're directing in your mind.
Right. They are separate from you.
But if someone is in your dream without you dreaming of them, they are part of the fabric of the dream itself. They are the stage. They are the atmosphere. Or they are observing from behind the scenery.
That is so trippy to think about. It implies a total permeation of their reality.
It suggests that Seth's consciousness can blend with their dream reality without needing to manifest a specific form. He is the wind in the trees of the dream. He is the feeling of safety. Or he is simply the eye that is watching the dream unfold alongside them.
It completely changes the definition of being alone. If an entity can be in your dreams without you even seeing them, are we ever really private?
That is the double-edged sword of the spirit world, isn't it? You're never alone. For some, that is the ultimate comfort, to be held by a larger consciousness. For others, it's a terrifying lack of privacy.
Seth tries to keep it comforting, though. He ends that section with, my heartiest wishes to you both.
He is a gentleman, after all. He has manners.
But wait, he doesn't leave just yet. He has one more puzzle piece to drop. The session is ending. It's 11:34 p.m. And he throws out a reference to Boston.
The street in Boston had to do with the word bleak.
And he asks them to confirm the spelling, B-L-E-A-K. And Jane nods.
Now, this requires a little context. The notes explain that earlier that evening, before the session, when they were just chatting, likely cleaning up the party, Rob and Jane had been discussing Boston reincarnational material from a previous session, number 257.
So they were talking about a past life in Boston privately.
Yes, and they were likely trying to remember details or figure out a location. They were stumped.
And Seth, who presumably wasn't there because Jane wasn't in a trance yet, pops in at the very end of the night and says, by the way, the street you were looking for, it has to do with the word bleak.
It is the ultimate eavesdrop.
It proves he was listening the whole time.
Or that he has access to their memory banks. Or that he was literally hovering in the room, unseen, while they drank their coffee and smoked their cigarettes.
It ties right back to the dream comment. I am with you more often than you suppose.
That really is the underlying theme of this session. Presence. Unseen, but constant presence.
It validates the whole experience for them in such a profound way. It's one thing to get a massive lecture on consciousness. It is another thing entirely for the voice to say, hey, I heard what you whispered to your husband 3 hours ago.
It creates a continuity of existence. Seth isn't just a radio station they tune into for an hour. He's a roommate.
A roommate who pays rent in riddles and financial advice.
The best kind of roommate.
So we have unpacked the session. We've got the publishing prophecy, the bridge personality dissolving, the funny financial insecurity about the paintings, The numbers game with Tennessee, the dream permeation, and the Boston clue.
It is an incredibly dense 9 minutes of channeling.
It really is. And remember, this whole thing lasted from 11.25 to 11.34, 9 minutes.
That is just incredible efficiency.
What stands out to you most, looking at this as a whole?
For me, it is the oscillation between the grand and the trivial. The fact that the same entity discusses the mechanics of a bridge personality dissolution and also teases Rob about selling his paintings. It suggests that from Seth's perspective, there is no separation between spiritual life and daily life.
Yeah.
It's all one thing.
That is a great takeaway. We tend to compartmentalize so much, like, this is my spiritual practice time and this is my paying the bills time. Seth is saying, no, paying the bills is part of the spiritual practice. Dealing with your ego about your wife's success is part of the spiritual practice.
And solving riddles about Tennessee is part of the fun.
Definitely. It keeps them engaged. It keeps them intensely curious.
It also strongly encourages critical thinking. Seth rarely gives straight answers to factual questions like dates or locations. He gives clues. He wants them to do the work. He wants them to use their intuition to bridge the gap.
He's a teacher, not an encyclopedia.
Exactly. He's teaching them how to fish, not just handing them the fish.
I want to circle back to the block of time riddle, because I feel like there is something there for you guys to chew on. A 4 and a 6 with a block between.
It's a puzzle I would love to see someone crack.
Maybe it's not about dates at all. Maybe it's about structure.
Yeah.
A block between 4 and 6. What is 5?
Is 5 the block?
Or is 5 the bridge?
So earlier he mentioned 5 and 7 in Tennessee. So 5 appears again right there.
So I have a 4, a 5, which is the implied block, a 6, and a 7.
It feels almost like a sequence. A musical progression, maybe?
Or coordinates.
It really highlights the limitations of language when you're dealing with nonlinear information. Seth is trying to translate a concept, a gestalt of information, into English words and numbers. A block having to do with a period of time. Maybe he actually sees time as physical blocks.
Like Tetris.
Kind of, yeah. If time is simultaneous, as Seth often argues, then a period of time is just a block you can move around or observe from different angles. Maybe the block between is a missing piece of time, a lost memory.
Or a period of waiting. You have to wait between the 4 and the 6.
Which would perfectly fit the when the time comes warning he gave right before it.
It is maddeningly brilliant.
It keeps us talking about it 60 years later, that's for sure.
It sure does.
You know, this session really exemplifies why the early sessions are so special. The later books, like Seth Speaks, or The Nature of Personal Reality, they are polished, they are textbooks. But these early sessions, they are the raw footage. You see the relationship forming in real time. You see the absolute humanity of Jane and Rob.
It's the origin story.
And for anyone who wants to really understand the material, you can't just read the final product. You have to understand the process. You have to see sessions like 263, where they were just tired, sitting on a couch at 11:30 at night, wondering if they are crazy or if they are on to something huge.
And Seth is there assuring them, you are on to something huge.
And history proved him entirely right.
Now, before we wrap up, we need to tell you how you can explore this yourselves. We have only scratched the surface of these 9 minutes. There are literally thousands of sessions to go through.
You absolutely must go to the source. We are just two people talking into microphones. The real magic is in the books themselves.
You can find the early sessions, including Book 6, which contains the session we talked about today, at the New Awareness Network.
Their website is the absolute hub for all things Seth.
Specifically, you need to go to sethcenter.com/the early sessions. I highly encourage you to study the Seth Material books directly.
Again, that is sethcenter.com/the early sessions. Support the publisher that kept Seth's promise alive all these years.
If they hadn't published these verbatim, exactly as Seth predicted that night in 1966, we wouldn't be here talking about it. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy you can actively participate in.
It really is.
So what does this all mean for us sitting here tonight?
I think it means that the veil is much thinner than we think. It means that our private worries about money, about success, about the future, are seen and understood by a much larger perspective.
And it means that we should probably pay closer attention to the little nudges in our lives, the absurd compulsions, the numbers that keep popping up.
The random street names in Boston.
Right, the street names in Boston.
It suggests that the universe is in constant dialogue with us, if we are just quiet enough to listen.
That is a beautiful thought. But I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to mull over as you drift off to sleep tonight.
What is that?
Seth told Rob, "You may not dream of me, but I will be in your dreams." He is an invited guest in their subconscious. But it begs the question, If Seth is in our dreams without us seeing him, who else is there?
Or what else?
Who else is walking through the background of your subconscious right now? Completely unseen, but perfectly present.
Now, that is a thought that will definitely keep me awake.
Sleep tight, everyone. And pay attention to the 4 and the 6.
Good night.
This has been our deep dive. We will see you next time.